Hi, this is Hank reporting from Kyiv, and this is my update on Russian-Ukrainian war. Let's see what happened around Ukraine in the last 24 hours. Azov knocked occupants out. Story of Jona Neidhart. Mined laptop. After Russian prison. Mysterious Russian economy. Azov knocked out Russians from Serebryansky forestry. This is what many headlines look like after the statement of Sviatoslav Palomar, Deputy Commander of the 12th Special Forces Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine, better known as Azov. Sviatoslav himself defended Mariupol, was in Russian captivity and then held in Turkey. Let's call it a more honorable captivity, after which he was exchanged as a prisoner of war and now serves as Deputy Commander. This is a real military officer and no loud empty statements were noticed behind him. We don't know each other personally, but my friends know him. This person will not talk in vain, but soon after this statement, which caused a lot of noise in the media, an edition was released from the Brigade management with one line at the end: "Success loves silence." Why is this a big deal? And I'm talking separately about the fact that the Ukrainian army occupied enemy's positions and advanced only 800 meters. In the fall of 2022, a real meat grinder began there. This territory is terribly complex. A coniferous forest in which even experienced soldiers often lose orientation because there simply are no specific features on the landscape, just scorched forest in all directions. Unfortunately, I knew several people who will remain there forever defending their home. This is the first episode of the advance of our troops in this sector in 18 months. A year ago, a group of volunteers and I raised more than $2 million to buy British armored vehicles to them, and now they are being sent to those positions. In the meantime, we were implementing this project. The US government lifted the ban on the supply of Western weapons to the Azov Brigade. It would be better for the invaders to flee from that section of the front while they still can. Jona Neidhart, a Swiss teacher who defended Ukraine for 2 years, allowed himself to be arrested in Bern. "I'm looking forward to my arrest," he said on Thursday afternoon when he arrived in Bern after a 4-day bus journey from Ukraine. "I stand by my decision to have fought for Ukraine and thus for democracy." This is a line from a UA Tribune article dedicated to this brave guy from Switzerland. He defended Ukraine with arms for 2 years, and especially for the peace summit in Ukraine, he returned to his home country realizing that he would be convicted under local law. This act is not recklessness, but his action to attract public attention. My friend Smurf, a former prisoner of war who is now on a mission in Switzerland, communicated with him personally and speaks of him as most worthy person. "This conference is a joke," Neidhart told Blick. "Anyone who really wants to help Ukraine must be enabled to defeat the Russians militarily. You must break the Russians first before you negotiate with them, not the other way around." Whoa, this is a serious position. I was discussing the World Summit a few days ago, and what I see here is that this guy, being Swiss, believes that talking without force will not help. The classic scheme is a good man must have fists, or with the help of a revolver and a kind word, you can achieve much more than with a kind word alone. This can also be considered an addition to my words that Putin must be first defeated by his standards and not by ours. I salute you, Jona, and thank you for your service. May justice be served, and I hope it is not too harsh on you. Sergey Flash, a Ukrainian communication systems specialist whom I read with great interest, showed this video. In this video, you see a laptop found by Ukrainian military filled with explosives and steel balls as a destructive element. Such gifts are left by the enemy in positions in the hope that they will be found by the armed forces of Ukraine. Local waiters can also bring them. This is what we call those Ukrainians who live in the occupied territories and do not travel either to the controlled territory of Ukraine or to Russia, but they are waiting for the Russian peace to come and free them. My friends have told stories when they came to evacuate such waiters with their children, and they just smiled and said, "We won't go." And then the occupiers attacked them with guns from another house's window. Traitors are worse than open enemies. And this is the result of the explosion of this mine. I don't know about the consequences, but as you can see, such an explosion is enough to take the lives of several people or seriously injure them. It is clear that having found a laptop that looks expensive, a person will want to check it and plug it in. It's clear that somewhere near the front line no one will call sappers to check some laptop. Russian methods of warfare are worse than ISIS. They call us brotherly nation and leave such souvenirs for their brothers. Look at the people who were returned from Russian captivity on May 31 of this year. Photographer Konstantin Liberov photographed these people a week after their release. They had already eaten a little. On his phone, he shows a photo of himself before the captivity. I can't look at these photos without tears. How much does this adult man weigh? 40 kilograms. How much did he lose? Another 50 kilos? Why bring people to this state? They have already surrendered and laid down their arms. They won't harm you. When people say that this is Putin's war, I don't want to hear this. It's not Putin who says to ordinary Russians, keep him in prison and make him suffer. It's not Putin who says, capture Bucha and shoot those who are captured in the back of the head. I won't talk about the severed head of Ukrainian soldier that was found today. It's physically difficult for me to understand what's in the souls of people who do this. Public examination of the state of affairs in the economy and production of the Russian Federation is closed. Putin has classified all possible data, and without these data, no one on the planet can say what is really happening there. Not the best economists, not heads of intelligence, not fortune tellers. In 2022, it was possible to receive analysis from experts who received data from leaked databases, insights from Russian moles in the government, from journalistic investigations from anyone and everyone. Now such information simply doesn't exist in the public domain, and it doesn't leak out a lot. There is one source that is trying to present information that it allegedly receives from the secret sources in the Kremlin, but since we cannot verify this, so I'll call it according to data from a secret source, and take it with a grain of salt. In summary, things look like this. First, there is absolutely no functioning feedback system in Putin's government. I can easily believe this because I see how things are in the broad sense of the word. Russian soldiers are dying by thousands in an attempt to take some village, and the middle management of the Russian army reports some successes to their superiors, and then we'll see this Putin's clownery where he talks on camera about how they will erase the whole world into dust while being unable to capture the small town of Vovchansk, 10 kilometers inland from the border of Ukraine. This is a direct legacy of the Soviet Union. Well, you remember how they constantly inflated the amount of corn collected in order to impress America, the amount of milk produced, tanks built, etc. In Putin's elections, you see how they draw these ridiculous 142% of the votes and so on. If all this is fake from the very bottom to the top, then there is no point in believing that their ultimatums have any basis. They talk so much about their nuclear weapons, like the boy who shouted "Wolves." Let's assume that if they really wanted to use nuclear weapons, they would have conducted at least one nuclear test within 28 months to at least be sure that the missile would even take off. I can also make a video on demand $1 million from Putin for my destroyed house. How effective will this be? Second, conformism and the desire to seize out the storm won in Russia. Yeah, that's right. Do you see the Russian elites rebelling who have really lost a lot? Businesses, connections, respect, money, opportunities. I'm not talking about the lower classes who gave away their sons. The upper class who are used to flying to London for shopping and buying real estate near the Lake Como. These people have a lot to hate Putin for, but where are their actions? Everyone just resigned themselves and sat quietly in the hope that they would be lucky to survive this. There is a nuance. If you know how many top managers from Gazprom and related structures have suddenly fell out of the window since the beginning of 2022, then write in the comments. Putin is actively killing those he dislikes and tightening the screws. The elites in Russia have no future. They are the same slaves, only living in better houses, but they do not have any rights and will not have them under this government. The only solution for people with money, brains and values is to secretly support the Ukrainian armed forces with their money. Why should they support a country with which their country is at war? Because only the armed forces of Ukraine can give them hope for a better future after the change of power in Russia, because Ukraine will be their bridge to the civilized world. If Ukraine falls, the FSB service will still not allow the Russian elites to live freely, and top managers will continue to fall out of windows, and there are many more windows in Russia than there are top managers. Third, Russia does not have a clear strategy for further development of actions. If you watched Putin's speeches for a while, you've probably noticed that he constantly appeals to the concept of the goals of the special military operations will be achieved, or everything is going according to plan. Yes, the plan was to destroy the army and the country's image on the world stage in order to capture the ruins of several Ukrainian cities wiped off the face of the earth. To completely capture the Luhansk and Donetsk regions, 2.5 years have not worked. Demilitarize Ukraine, and damn it, Putin, now it's difficult to find a type of weapon that is not already in Ukraine. Stop NATO expansion, I won't even comment on this. So what's the plan? No one in the world will figure out your plan if you have no plan. And Putin has no plan. Since the millions are completely dependent on his decisions, it means they also have no plan. And of course, millions of Russians have no plan. How beautiful the rigid vertical of power is. 4. China is buying your country at a discount. Doesn't that bother you? Russian strategy, as I see it, is based only on one thing: winners are not to be judged. They want to occupy Ukraine at any cost and then decide what to do next. Somehow to pay off debts to China, somehow to restore the economy, somehow improve relations with the world. Russians have an expression, avos, which literally means suddenly it will work out. They use it in phrase do it on avos, which means doing something without thinking about the consequences, but in the hope of success. If you know this subtlety of the Russian mentality, then you are not surprised. By the way, in Ukraine there is simply no such expression. China benefits, China feels its importance, China understands that the second army in the world is far from being so strong, and even with all problems, China has 10 times more population than Russia and is far ahead of Putin's formation. Official inflation in Russia is not based on the real prices in stores. The artificially maintained ruble-dollar exchange rate also cannot exist forever. The fact that the Russian government is telling fairy tales about the GDP growth and sustainability with a terrible shortage of personnel will be clear even to a person who doesn't understand economics. Everything cannot be fine when you don't have enough workers and there is a war going on. At the same time, the salaries of employees at a missile manufacturing plant average $700 a month. This is far from an increase. Since neither we nor Russian analysts have accurate information about the state of affairs, it is unknown how long the Russian economy can last in such an overheated state. A drain of qualified employees, a record number of sanctions, artificially inflated salaries for the military-industrial complex to motivate the army. If we imagine that the war is simply stopped, it will not solve the problems in Russian economy. The resources that they seized in Crimea and in the occupied territories of other regions of Ukraine are simply not enough to restore what was destroyed, and they still need to integrate several million new people and pay them salaries and pensions. All this suggests that Putin and his elites simply do not have any coherent plan. And now the question is, why do you think Putin has become so actively promoting his peace plan lately? It seems to me that things are not going very well for him. This blog turns out to be huge, and I'll be dividing it into several videos because there's really a lot of interesting information and questions for thought. I've been filming these videos for more than a month now, and I want to say that it's very interesting and very difficult process. All this news needs to be analyzed and a conclusion drawn, what I understand and how I feel. When Russians commit another crime, I need to live it. This feels like a professional deformation because I cannot say that I feel the same as before the war. Previously, my empathy made me grieve hard for the loss of loved ones or simply the tragic death of people, but now it's as if has broken down, and after about a dozen murdered acquaintances, you simply stop feeling. These are just terrible statistics and some dry facts. It's interesting if I'll be able to recover completely from this. This was my update on the Russian-Ukrainian war for day number 847. Thank you for watching and supporting us in our fight for survival. Take care and see you tomorrow.